Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Master The NEC, where we talk about the National Electrical Code and, of course, all things electrically related. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host as always, and welcome to today's podcast. So today's podcast is going to be a really good one. I'm hoping to keep it under 30 minutes, but it's really touching on a subject that I get asked quite a bit. And a lot of electrical contractors out there, or people that are very knowledgeable in the electrical industry, ask me all the time, what does it actually take to become an expert witness in cases? And what do I need to think about? Okay. And what things need to be thought of when I'm thinking about whether you're asked to do something or to speak in a court case or whatever. There's so many ways that you can approach this, but I want to talk about it from an electrical perspective, assuming that you're an electrical expert who's listening to this podcast and you want to add expert witness to your services list, things that you need to think about. Okay. But before we do that, we're going to run our commercial because, again, we thank you for visiting our electricianpride.com website and helping buy the stickers and the shirts and the mugs and all the things we have over there to help support the show. I appreciate you and all of your patronage. And if everybody out there buys at least one t-shirt, I'm like, hey, there you go. You can support us for another year. 2021's coming up. And again, it's quite expensive for our podcast hosting service every year annually. So every donation and everything that helps does help. Till then, let's run this commercial for Electrician Pride, and then we'll get into today's topic. Today's show is sponsored by electricianpride.com, your one-stop shop for electrician-specific t-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, mugs, die-cut stickers, leggings, and so much more. Featuring unique designs for electricians, journeymen, and master electricians, as well as electrical engineers and electrical inspectors. For more information on all the products that are available, visit us at www.electricianpride.com today. All right. So again, everybody that visits Electrician Pride or shares it with other people, we appreciate you and we thank you for your ongoing support. If you want to make donations to us, you can also go to our main webpage, masterthenec.com, and you'll see near the bottom we have 3 different giveaways as thank yous for your donation. You select whatever one you want, and we'll send that out to you. All right, so today's episode, we are going to be talking about expert witnesses. And when you think about expert witness, it's like, okay, so if I'm a master electrician, I've got some knowledge and experience in this trade. I've got the education, I got the experience, I got the skill. I want to put it to work as an expert witness in litigation. And it's fairly straightforward. There's minimal legal requirements. Again, I should say up front, before I even get into this, I am not an attorney. I do not play an attorney. I am not giving legal advice. I'm giving opinions. I'm giving my opinion. Okay? So before you do anything, before you act, consult with your attorney, consult with the attorney who's interested in hiring you as an expert witness. Vet all that out yourself. Again, I am not giving legal advice on behalf of myself or Electrical Code Academy Incorporated or anybody or any entity that is associated with me. Okay? So we've got that all out of the way. I am not an attorney and I'm not giving you legal advice. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to be an attorney anyway. They don't make enough money. That's just my opinion for what they do. Now, some of them do, but again, you're not always representing O.J. Simpson and whatnot, okay? So, all right, so let's kind of look at expert witness requirements. And again, giving you my take on this, my belief on this, and a lot of this will come from my experience with a company which is SEAK, Seek. Okay. And they kind of are like an expert witness directory that you can get listed as an expert witness with and things like that. But it's basically also what I have kind of used as my understanding of different situations where I've been asked to be an expert witness, whether I've done it through simple submittal to court with a letter documented of a statement or appearing in court for deposition or litigation purposes. Whatever it is, I've kind of put together, my experiences and the things that I want to tell you about if you have this inkling to be an expert witness. Okay, so things to think about. Again, not an attorney, so just giving you my opinions and my thoughts and things like this. So there's two things that you typically have to think about when it comes to being an expert witness, and obviously a very effective one, is that you have legal requirements that you have to meet. And then, of course, there's practical requirements, proof of meeting the status as an expert. And so there's two different burdens that you have to think about as an expert witness. Now, according with the Federal Rule of Evidence 702, an expert witness has to have knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education in the area that they choose to be their expertise. Now, a master electrician in a state is going to have the knowledge, the skill, the expertise, even the training, because they had to have a certain amount of training anyway to sit for a license, and the education that's associated with that based on the licensing requirements in the various states. So you already have a leg up on most people because you have this knowledge, skill, expertise. Now, I will warn you, if you have expertise in 1 and 2 family, or multifamily, or PV, or wind generation, or if you have an area expertise, stay within that area because you know what? You can get into trouble if you're used to wiring 1 and 2 family dwellings and you do them very well, but you take on a case in a large commercial or industrial project and it comes to light that you don't have areas of expertise in that area. Okay, you're 1 and 2 family. So I'll talk about what I do, and you can see whether or not you would like it to apply to you. I'm just giving you my opinions. But the first thing that I do is when somebody contacts me about interested in being an expert witness, and of course, serving on code panels, things like that, working for certain companies, your history, puts you well established in the industry that you want to be an expert witness. Okay. The first thing I'll ask is for an executive summary of the case to determine whether or not I want to be involved in it. And I do not let attorneys bully me or push me and say, don't worry about that. You got an expertise. I'm not interested in that. I'm just hang up. If you want me to be involved in a case, I need an executive summary on this case that gives me the meat and potatoes, the nuts and the bolts. I need to know what this case is about. And I also say executive summary, and I want an attorney's summary. I want the attorney's opinion so far on what's going on in this case. Okay. And so I will ask for these things, and if I get it and I read it and I am passionate about it, I don't do expert witness for the money. It's good money, but I don't do it for the money. I have to be passionately involved in it. And I have to believe that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. Okay? And so there's this issue when you look at the knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education. Let me give you a great example. So I've known cases where an electrical engineer was hired, but it was about an installation issue. Once it got to court, or once it got into the deposition and then the cross-examination and disqualifying of expert witnesses and all this kind of stuff, the electrical engineer didn't have any hands-on experience in the field. It was all through college and then went into design and had a good design background, very well knowledgeable in that area, but never twisted a screwdriver, never hung a luminaire, never did anything hands-on. So the summary of the case was a very specific application that was done from an electrician's level. And at that point, the electrical engineer could only testify as an expert on electrical theory and general installation practices from a level of somebody that's never turned a wrench for electrical or never turned a screwdriver or never used a wiggy or anything like that in their life. And so they got discredited pretty quickly. Okay, and we'll talk about some of the practical requirements about having thick skin. We'll talk about that later. But there's so many things that, for example, if I was being hired to do something as an expert witness that I never have done before in the electrical industry, I just don't feel comfortable with it, I'm not taking that. Just because I'm an electrician, just because I have knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education, I might have to do a self-judgment and say, look, I know electrical. I know electrical installs. I don't know anything about something that happened on the top of a wind turbine inside of it that's electrically related. I'm not getting involved in that case. I'm just not. So you have to, this is why I want an executive summary of the case. This is why I want the attorney's opinion of the case to this point. And because they'll give a theory of where they're going, and that's why they hired you. They'll give you a theory of where they're going, and I would either agree or disagree with it, or say, well, okay, I'm interested in this, and I'll do some investigative work and research and things like that, which a good expert witness should be able to do. I have to be the one to make that decision, because ultimately I can say no. So make sure that whatever you venture into, you do truly have the knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education to be in that jury, in that court, on that stand, willing to testify. Okay? All right, so make sure. Now, one of the other things that we want to look at is the legal requirement is to make sure that in your state, you can actually give expert witness services without being charged with practicing without a license. Now, that probably is a doctor or a lawyer, as a lawyer without, like this, just the disclaimer I gave up front. You just got to be very careful. And what I tend to tell expert witnesses is that if you live in one state and you're hired to do expert witnesses in another state, that you make sure that the attorney puts in writing that they have determined that you do not have to have a license in that state, that you do not have to have any type of administrative qualifications within that specific state. So get all that out of the way. Make the attorney do that. You don't do that. Again, I'm not giving legal advice. I'm just saying that's common sense. Let them do it before you even get involved. Okay? And I will tell a lot of people, expert witnesses, a lot of people will call and you think that you have to have all the answers up front for the attorney or whoever's calling you. And that's bullcrap. I don't know their processes. I'm not an attorney. I don't study judicial law or the review process or that. I don't get involved in that. If you were doing this for your income, and this was the only job you had, then you might dabble in that. But I do not. I totally keep myself as an expert to electrical, and that is it. I don't profess to be overly knowledgeable in any other part of the process. Now, if that means that they don't want to hire me, that's perfectly fine. That's how I do it. You get as knowledgeable into it as you want, but you just want to be careful because in some states it might require a certain type of license to be an expert witness, and you need to have that attorney vet that out before you agree to anything. And so, in my contracts state that they will vet that out, and that type of thing. All right. So anyway, so those are kind of the things that you need to think about from the legal aspect of it and the moral aspect of it. You got to ask yourself, am I really qualified? And that's why it's so important to ask for that executive summary of the case and the attorney's opinion. All right. Yeah, he could be wrong. She could be wrong. It doesn't matter. I want their opinion at this point of where they are in their case. Okay. Then we're talking about some of the practical requirements that you have to be aware of if you want to be an expert witness. Okay. And there's a lot more of these for you to think about. And I'll just kind of go through a bunch of them. First of all, before you even want to get into being an expert witness, wherever you're at in the country, you need to know whether or not there's a need for it. Okay. Whether or not there's, because you can hang a shingle out to do anything. If there's no need for it, then the shingle's eventually going to fall. It's just not going to be a demand in your area. So, one of the things I tell people, if you feel like you're qualified to be an expert witness, send out a letter to all of the attorneys in your area that handle litigation that are kind of in the area of expertise that you want to be in. Okay. Civil litigation, that type of thing. Not so much criminal, but the civil litigation. But that's up to you, however you want to go. I'm pretty open to any of it. Somebody got killed on the job and it was something to do with electrical done improperly, and I don't mind taking those type of things. But again, identify what you want to be at and whether or not your marking could sustain it. Okay. No sense in getting into the work of wanting to be an expert witness and then there's really no work for you there. Now, obviously, the bigger the jurisdiction you're in, then again, there's a more of a opportunity for you if that's what you're looking for. The second thing I will tell you is you have to have the ability to meet and beat deadlines. Litigation is very much deadline driven. Everything has a line drawn in the sand, a point when you're going to go to court, point when you have to have summaries in, point when you got to understand that you have to be a person that is very in tune. So if you're a procrastinator, this is not the thing for you, because you have to write it in a certain way. You have to have good communication skills, which we'll talk about later. But you have to beat deadlines, or even you have to meet them or beat deadlines in order to give the attorney enough time to file paperwork and do certain things that they have to do. This is their area of expertise. And so you just can't say, for example, I can't do this because I'm working on a large commercial job and I just don't have the time right now. If you sign on that dotted line and you become an expert witness, you're going to have to meet these deadlines. There is no way around it. It's just not like, mom give you a note to miss school today. It's not going to work. Okay. So it's a commitment and you have to be into the commitment. Okay. Next is you're going to have to be committed to the highest level of excellence. And I believe that you have to be very competitive. And those that are competitive not only make great lawyers, but also make great expert witnesses. You're ready to go, right? You're ready to tit for tat with fact. Okay. You're not going to BS your way around it. You're ready to say, let's buckle up and let's go. You bring your expert witness, we'll bring ours, and let's get it on. That type of thing. All right. So in that scenario, I look for, as an expert witness, if you're really timid, this is probably not the thing for you to do. Really not. If you get nervous in front of crowds, if you get nervous when somebody's looking right down your gullet and expecting you to give a response, technically driven response, it's probably not for you. But if that gets you jacked up and you're into that, you're that competitiveness in it, then expert witness is great. And the lawyers will love you because the good lawyers are like that as well. Now, if I read an executive summary and an attorney's opinion of the case at this point, and I'm just not into it, then it's a little birdie in the back of my head goes, pass, Paul, pass. Because it will not have the time that I need to dedicate to it, which tells me that I'm liable to miss something down the road, and that's going to affect me very badly, legally and potentially criminally if I've signed agreements and something happens in a case and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I'm not interested in that. Okay. I don't want to be involved in that. So you have to look at it, and you just can't take everything that comes down your pipeline. You really have to determine whether or not that is what you want to do. All right. I had a case that wasn't in court, but I has a case where I did the investigative work and everything outside of that. And of course, I was a private investigator as what I had as part of my firm back in Virginia. And, it was broader than just electrical, which I do now. But this was a slip and fall on some stairs. And it was at a resort in the mountains in Virginia. And people can figure out where that is by just knowing where I grew up. And anyway, it ended up being not enough light. It didn't have handrails. It had moss on the steps. The treads weren't wide enough. The riser wasn't correct. Ultimately, the path of egresses weren't right. All that stuff I investigated and put in a report. And ultimately, I didn't even have to testify because that was enough in that report in order to induce a settlement on that case. But that's the kind of thing that you do. And that was a little different because I was a private investigator as well as electrical consultant back then when I did that. So again, that's things that, that you do, and you have to be passionate about it. And I was, and that's what I did with that. So don't go into it half-hearted. That's why I say get an executive summary and an attorney's opinion up to this point in the case, and so that you can read it and see whether or not you're passionate about it. The next thing I will tell you is I would recommend you sit down by yourself and write down all the potential skeletons that are in your closet. Do you have any criminal convictions? Any licensure revocation? Any exams that you failed multiple times? Any controversial things that you've written in the past? Like I say, I write a whole heck of a lot of stuff that I put online, but I stand behind anything that I put out there. So I don't have to worry about that, because if I say it, I'm going to stand behind it. Okay. Did I do poorly, or was you disqualified in the past as an expert witness? In other words, during the acceptance period where you're actually in front of a jury qualifying you as an expert witness, and ultimately you get disqualified and they said, you know what, you don't qualify. You need to make sure you detail that. And that's okay, because maybe you took something you really weren't qualified for and whatever. But make sure you also write down all those things that did disqualify you previously so that you can go forward. That way the hiring attorney knows these type of things before you get too heavily involved in anything. Okay? But understand, because I can promise you, your cross-examination of your expert witness, they will spend their time looking you up. Okay? And it doesn't take much. For example, for me, it doesn't take much to go into Google and type my name, and you'll find everything. I got my share of haters. That don't mean anything. But again, you've got your share of people that love you. At the end of the day, they're looking for controversial statements, and most importantly, what might go against what their case is involved in. That's why it's so important to have the executive summary of a case. So anyway, think about all those things and write them down. The next thing I'll say is your schedule. You need to have a very flexible schedule. If you're working for somebody and you're getting paid by them, but you want to hold yourself out as an expert and you're doing side work, side hustle, whatever you're doing, be prepared that depositions and trial appearances can eat up a lot of time, and they sometimes can be further away than you like, not always right down the street. And you have to be flexible, because these dates are set. There's plaintiffs and there's defendants and their clients have to meet these appearances, have to meet these dates. There'll be deposition dates, things like that you have to bend your schedule to be flexible. And you need to really look at it and see, are you flexible for that? Okay? Because it's important, because you're going to sign an agreement or a contract, and you need to be flexible for your client. You also have to determine whether or not you actually do have enough free time to get these assignments done on the deadline. Remember what we talked about? We said you have to meet or beat deadlines. Well, you might have to work nights, weekends, extra time, whatever to meet it, but you need to make sure that you have that free time. Okay? You're working 3 jobs. This ain't going to work for you. You got no free time. Okay? Now, I'll also say this. If you work for somebody and you're not your own boss, then the employer needs to know if you're going to serve as an expert witness, because there may be time when you need off. And so you can take off without pay, which is preferred. I would never say take off on the company's time. If it has nothing to do with the company, that's just wrong. So take off time without pay. And that way you can, again, there's no issue or conflict when it comes to that. But you need to also make sure that your employer is fully supportive of that, because you can't be taking off all the time in order to do this private work. And they're thinking, look, you're affecting what you do for me because you're doing all this other stuff. Okay, so think about it. The next thing I will say is, look, we all get offended. We all get our feelings hurt. I get it. It's a different level when you're in a courtroom, because the whole opposite side in this thing is going to try to challenge the work you've done, challenge your credentials. They're going to paint you as unqualified. They're going to paint you as sloppy. They're going to paint you as dishonest. They're going to call you all kinds of names, and you're going to get offended. But you have to realize that they don't know you, and they're doing this because that's their job, because they need to get you down. Here's how I think about it. The more crap they say about me, even if I know it's untrue, it means they're worried about me. And it only gets my competitive spirits going and juices going, because you'll get an opportunity to answer these questions. And you can debunk it and say, that's just not true. And the easiest thing I failed to say when somebody says something that's a lie or improper or whatever's misleading is I turn and I go to the judge or whoever and I go, that is just a lie. Have them prove that. Okay? And don't get in a yelling match. It makes you look very unprofessional. And again, they're trying to do this. So don't take it personal, because this is what their job is, to paint you this way. Okay? Luckily for me, in all the cases that I've been involved in, it was pretty hard for them to debunk me as an expert. But again, they're going to try. They're going to try. That's their job. So don't let it offend you. You got to have some thick skin. Okay? Just remember, when you walk out of that courtroom after you've given your testimony or deposition, whatever you've done, your life's going to go on. Doesn't matter what they said. It's irrelevant. Okay? The judge, everybody knows what their job is. Now, if you do have those skeletons and you aren't organized and you're sloppy and all this stuff is true, then use it as a wake-up call, okay? Use it as a wake-up call in what you need to change. Because, again, if you don't have all your things and all your ducks in a row and all your T's crossed and I's dotted, it's going to come out in cross-examination of an expert witness. Trust me, okay? The next thing I will tell you is, to be an expert witness, you have to have good communication skills. Now, I like to think I have great communication skills. Otherwise, why in the world would I do videos and podcasts all the time? And I have a teaching method that is based on redundancy. People sometimes don't understand that, but I do it because I believe people need to hear things multiple times for it to sink in. You call it redundancy, I call it repetition, and that's just my teaching style, okay? You don't like it, I tell people you don't have to listen. You don't have to watch it. This is America. You have that choice. Turn it off. Okay? Don't watch another video of mine if you don't like it. I see this all the time. If somebody says, you're redundant, I'm like, then don't watch ever again. It's okay. I won't get my feelings hurt. Trust me, I'm all right. I don't have to please everybody, and I get it. So communication skill is very important, both verbal and in written. So forms. So you have to make sure that you have good, concise writing skills that get straight to the point. And it's very helpful. And as an expert witness, conveying a message, timelining it, things like that is very helpful. So look at yourself and see whether or not that is something that you do. You have good communications, good delivery, the ability to project with confidence. I find that's a big thing in court. Project with confidence. Be very confident in what you state and mean it. Also, make sure that you have a resume that you can give to the counsel and that can be shared with both counsels that make it clear your qualifications. So it's pretty hard to argue something that is written, because somebody cannot bring up something that isn't written. Like, you said you did this, you said you did that, and my response would be, you have my resume. This is what I'm attesting to, and this is what I'm answering to. And keep it short and sweet. So make sure you have a detailed resume with your qualifications and review and what you want to be on there. The next thing I will tell you is to avoid any confusion with the counsel that's hiring you. Is make sure you all understand your fee schedule. Make sure you have an expert witness contract so that states all of the terms and conditions. At any point you ever need to reduce your liability, make sure it's in your agreement. I always also say, if attorneys hire me, I say, I need you to read my agreement. If there's anything in here that you disagree with, or anything in here that you think could cause me problems, because at this point, I'm hiring you to review me before I'm hired by you to be your expert witness. And basically, I'm saying you're going to review my agreement for nothing, because I need you to look at it. Okay? Sometimes that's a little sticky thing, but again, that's up to you. I'm not an attorney, but my contracts are written in a way that it's, protects me. So, but I'm willing to give my expertise. And for anybody that emails me and says, can you share me a copy of your contract? No. Okay. Because I don't have to. You can go online and download it. It's on my website anyway. Just don't ask me where it is, because I only share that with counsels. So again, it's up there, but you got to find it. I'm not telling you where it is. Okay. Don't be a copycat. All right. All right. So just make sure everybody knows your fee schedule. It can be anywhere from $200 to $500 to, $1,000 an hour, whatever your fee schedule is, whatever you feel your level of expertise is, or whatever, it's kind of like collecting coins. A silver dollar is worth $1, but there are people that are paying $100,000 for a silver dollar. And I'm like, it's still only worth $1. Okay. So, you have to establish your worth. And just make sure you convey that to your client so it's in writing, it's clear cut, and there's no arguments. Okay. The last thing I will tell you is it kind of hits kind of strong with me because I've always struggled with it. Is you have to have what I call the 3 pillars of excellence as an expert witness, and that is you have to have great organizational skills, you have to have great investigative skills, intuitiveness. And then you have to have good research skills. Okay. You have to be able to look up the codes. You have to be able to make sure that what you're doing in a specific state that you might be working as an expert witness is that you're following the rules in that state when it comes to codes or different electrical practices, making sure there's no amendments in the state that you'll look like a hack if you go up there and you're talking about something and there's an amendment by the state to this. Okay. Then it wouldn't look good. So you have to have good research skills, good investigative skills, and good organizational skills in order to be able to compile all this together and to look like you're really have your game together. Because again, if you're going to work with attorneys, you're going to come across as an expert witness, you need to have your crap together. Okay? This is not something that you as an electrical contractor or a master electrician or even an engineer just want to kind of throw together on the side. If you're going to do expert witness work, then you need to have the 3 pillars. You have to be organized. You have to be good at investigative techniques and collecting information. And you have to be good at researching and making sure that what you're getting ready to say is applicable in the state or the case that you're being hired as an expert witness. If you can check off all those boxes and you take into consideration all of those practical things that we just talked about, you've got the time, you've got the ability, you have the knowledge, the expertise, you've thought about the deadlines, you know this is not a problem, you work for somebody, you know the employer is not going to have an issue with it, you've got thick skin, you don't get offended easy, especially in a courtroom, and just realize that the other person, that's their job to throw pins at you, throw darts at you. That's their job. If you know you have good communication skills, you can verbally as well as writtenly convey something that you're trying to convey to somebody else in a easy to understand, concise way, then this might be great for you. And you can do pretty well in it. Now, if you're in the middle of Topeka, Kansas, I don't know how much work there is for an expert witness in electrical. I just don't know. But if you're in the middle of a big place like Oklahoma City or Dallas, Texas, or Northern Virginia, okay, or Chicago, then there might be a huge practice for an expert witness in the electrical industry. And I know there's tons of them out there, okay? There's lots of people out there that hang that shingle up as an expert, and that's fine because, again, they probably all are experts. So if you want to throw your hat in that ring, just make sure you've given it some thought. And I wanted today to just kind of give you a message about those thoughts and how you approach it and what I approach it like, so that if that's something that you want to do, that you have all the research that you need and do as much more as you need. Go searching on the internet. There's some great resources and you can find out everything that you need to know. Go to seak.com and read some of their stories and some of their really, really good courses they have, if that's what you want to do. Okay, it can really help you. So hopefully you got something out of that, learned a little bit, decided whether or not you want to get into the expert to witness field. And if you qualify, go at it, but make sure you do it with a passion. You know why you're doing it, and that you're truly qualified to represent somebody in the specific case that's presented to you. Until next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.